Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
This is all about helping people. That is why I am so passionate about this, because it's literally getting up every day and helping people plan for the rest of their lives. Make a plan, because I promise you're going to sleep better.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Let's sit down. Let's make sure we have got a holistic plan. We're not just looking at one thing.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. As always, we're here with the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement, Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin, and Tim and I thank you so much for joining us on the program, and we hope you're having a wonderful day. Coming up on the program today, 'tis the season, but not that season. 'Tis the season for RMDs. So Tim's going to explain why tax planning isn't exactly a DIY project, and more importantly, how to avoid some unwanted tax surprises later in life. Plus, how can you prepare for the unexpected when it comes to your retirement? We'll get to that and a whole lot more, but first things first, we say hello to the man of the hour, the star of the show, and the most handsome man in the room, Mr. Tim Wood. And Tim, great to be with you as always, my friend. I hope you're having a great day.
I am, and it's a good thing I'm the most handsome man in this room, since I'm the only one. So that's a good thing, man. That makes me.
Hey, I wasn't lying, was I?
No, you weren't. That's absolutely true. Everyone listening, that's absolutely true. I am. I can honestly say I am.
That's what we do. We're a show of honesty here. I think that's what sets us apart from all the other financial shows, right? We are the show of honesty here on the Safe Money Retirement Show. That's what I like about you too, Tim, is we have fun on this show, but we also deliver a lot of great information. We got a whole lot of things to get into on the program today. And Tim, for those listening, obviously we know it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it is the holiday season, and a lot of folks are out there out and about. You're maybe doing some shopping, you're out maybe visiting some family. So first and foremost, if you're out there on the roads, please be careful, travel safely. But more importantly, Tim, I don't know about you, this time of year, I really sort of take a step back, really appreciate all the things we have in this life, whether it's kids, family, just time to get away from it all. It's such a great time to reflect on all the great things we have, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's also a good time to make that plan for next year. So being thankful, 100% being thankful for what we've got, and realizing that compared to most of the world, even with all of the issues that we have here, and not to go political, but let's face it, we have got way too many political and socioeconomic, and there's all kinds of issues. But still, compared to the rest of the world, man, we are blessed to live. God bless America. I'm USA all the way. Yes, we are absolutely blessed. But man, it is a great time to make that plan. What's your tomorrow going to look like? I was reading a quote earlier, and I absolutely loved it. The quote was, "Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want."
I like that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That's the truth. Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want, and there's no better time to start than today.
And let's be honest, Tim, there's no better time to start right now. Even if you're 5 or 10 years away from retirement, I know some folks are listening today, they're going, well, that's something I'll get to when I'm a year or two away. But really, the earlier the better when it comes to mapping out what a 20, 30, maybe even 40-year and beyond retirement could look like for you, right?
100%, absolutely. And with the plans that we have now, we've got plans that have guaranteed roll-up. So let's say you came to me 6 years before you were going to retire and you knew you needed X dollars in income. Well, if you wait all the way till then and we create a personal pension plan for you that's going to start then, well, it's going to take a lot more money than if you were to start it now 6 years before, and we use that guaranteed roll-up. I mean, you'd be able to use a lot less now to get that income that you're going going to need anyway. So why not do that now? And I'm not talking about peeling off 100% of what you've got. I'm talking about peeling off what you need, making a long-term plan, making sure we've got that plan for income, for taxes, for RMDs, so what are you going to do for social? What are you going to do for healthcare? I mean, all of that stuff, it's all encompassing.
It's not something you want to try to navigate on your own, folks. That's why Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here to help. You want to get on his calendar? You want to have that conversation? 800-913-SAFE. Again, folks, that number is 800-913-7233. Or online, you can always reach Tim 24/7 at safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, it is the holiday shopping season, but it is also RMD season. Of course, that's standing for required minimum distributions. Now, Uncle Sam says beginning at age 73, you can't defer those taxes any longer. You've got to dip into your 401k and your traditional IRAs. So many take the minimum the government is asking, but let's think of it a different way, Tim. One, if you need more to live on, should you take the required amount and a little extra? And two, should you take more to bring your 401k balance down so that RMD would be lower in years to come? What are your thoughts on those two strategies?
Well, I hate to always be the one to say this, but it depends on the individual situation. Both of those things could apply in the individual situation. But honestly, if you need more to live on, here's the way I look at RMDs. We know we've got to take them out. If you're just getting to RMD age now at 73, if you were born in 1960 or later, it's actually not going to be until 75, okay? All RMDs are, that's required minimum distributions. People think, well, that's all I can take out. No, that's the minimum you have to take out because Uncle Sam wants his tax dollar. That's all that is. But here's the thing. If you know you're going to need to take this chunk of money and turn it into an income for you later in life, why would you just take a smaller percentage out in RMDs, knowing that if you do that over and over and over year after year, and if the market's down, if it's at risk in the market, you could wind up losing all of it or using all of it before you run out of life. And no one wants to run out of money before they run out of life. Whereas we could take that and we could put that into a guaranteed income plan that's going to allow you to withdraw more on a guaranteed lifetime basis for you and your spouse. And guess what? When you do that, that covers your RMDs. Just yesterday, I sat down with a client, and her whole thing was she didn't want to have to mess with RMDs anymore. Okay, well, here's a way we can do it. We can take that, we can put this into a guaranteed income plan. You're going to wind up getting paid more than you would by just doing RMDs, and now you're never going to have to mess with RMDs again the rest of your life, because those income payments you get, not only can they never go away as long as you're breathing, and if there's any money left in that account when you're gone, the beneficiaries get it, but now that takes care of your RMDs. And she only had one pre-tax account. She had one IRA. We put this in that. She had a whole bunch of other stuff, but only one IRA. Now she never has to mess with RMDs again. She had to do it this year because you always have to do it before you move money. So she had to go ahead and do the RMD for this year. That's done. Now once we turn on the income starting January 1st of next year, she's not ever going to have to worry about RMDs. So that's the first thing I say. And should you take more to bring your 401k balance down? Maybe. Again, it depends on a case-by-case basis. What I do with a lot of people is when they get close to or are right at retirement, we want to convert those 401k to IRA plans of some kind. Why do we want to do that? Because with IRAs, you can determine where the RMDs come out. So for example, Kevin, let's say you had 3 IRAs. You could pull all of the RMDs out of one of the IRAs, say the one of the 3 that wasn't growing as much, and let the other 2 just go. But if you've got a 401k or basically anything other than an IRA or certain situations with a 403b, you have to take them out individually. So if you had 3 401ks, you'd have to take an RMD out of each one individually. Even if one's not growing and one is killing it, you're still having to pull money out of both of them. You can't, it's what's called aggregation. You can't aggregate them together. So in most cases, we are moving money from a 401. It just depends on what what type of plan we're putting it into based on the needs of the client.
If you've got questions about RMDs, maybe you want to check some boxes between now and the end of the calendar year, you want to get on Tim Wood's calendar, well, pick up the phone. Give him a call today, 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233 or online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. And Tim, when it comes to pulling money out of those accounts, especially if they're not in Roth accounts, we know that taxes certainly can play a big role in that as well. So, Tim, let's talk about how important it is. We mentioned planning for retirement, even if you're 10 or more years away from it, but also planning for taxes now to avoid some tax surprises as you get into retirement. How crucial is that as well?
It's huge, brother. It's huge. I mean, and that's one of the first and biggest conversations that I have with new clients is taxes. Mm-hmm. It reminds me, I'm just reading this book called Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Great book. Anybody wants to read it, fantastic book. Many of y'all have heard of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book series. Robert Kiyosaki wrote that. They're fantastic. The whole series is great. But in the original book, one of the things Robert said is taxes are your largest single expense. It's right here on the back of this book. I was just reading it the other day. They are. And people don't think about it. You know, if someone says, well, I've got $500,000 in my IRA, I'm fine. One of my first questions is, what's your tax bracket? Well, I'm at 22%. Okay, well, guess what? I'm afraid to tell you, you don't have $500,000. Well, what do you mean? Well, let's do the math. Take off 22% off of $500,000 because that's the part the government owns. Mm-hmm. And that's at today's tax rates, people. Here's your most important thing right now about taxes. At today's tax rates, look at historically, we are at historically low tax rates. Historically low. And President Trump does have something to do with that. And President Trump's not going to be there forever. So what's going to happen when he's gone? It makes sense to make a plan now. While tax rates are low, we can look at Roth conversions. There's multiple things we can look at to make sure you've got an efficient tax strategy and that your tax strategy isn't, well, I sure wish I didn't have to pay them. Well, yeah, me too. But that's not realistic. Realistically, again, we need to have a plan. So what's the plan for income? What's the plan for growth? What's your plan for everything? And taxes is a big part of that because, like I said, if you think you've got all this money, but it's all still in a pre-tax account, you don't have all that money. Mm-hmm. Now, what do we want to do? Do we want to just take taxes out as you're getting distributions from that? Okay, that's one way to go. Or do we want to go ahead and pay the taxes now and set it up? I mean, maybe not all at one time, I understand, but set up a plan to where we're converting a whole bunch of that to Roth, because once something's in Roth, people, no taxes on the principal or any gains as long as the plan's been in place for 5 years. So it's huge. You could let something grow for 30 years and whatever it's grown to, it's all tax-free if it's in a Roth. Mm-hmm. So a lot of different things, but again, we have to look at an individual situation to figure out what's going to be the best plan for everybody individually.
If you don't have a plan when it comes to taxes in your retirement, let Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement help. Pick up the phone. Get on his calendar right now. We have teammates standing by to get you lined up to have that conversation. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Online anytime. It's safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com.
It's now time for our Safe Money Story of the Week. Visit safemoneystories.com to view more.
For this week's Safe Money Story of the Week, Kevin, I just want to go right back to what we were just talking about. Wonderful older lady that came in. She's a widow. She didn't want to ever have to worry about RMDs. She had this IRA that she had inherited from her husband when he passed. Nice big chunk of money, but now was having to mess with RMDs every year. No, he'd been passed away like for 3 or 4 years, and every year apparently it was this big headache for her to do RMDs, which it's really not, but that's not the point. So we wanted to figure out, well, what can we do so you don't ever have to worry about RMDs anymore? So essentially what we did, again, is we just moved that money into an IRA that's a guaranteed lifetime income plan. Well, that income that comes out from that plan more than covers the minimum distributions that she has to take. So now she never has to worry about RMDs ever again the rest of her life. It's covered. And if for some reason there was ever a point in the future in her life where the RMD percentage actually was more than what she was going to get paid, it automatically sent more to cover those RMDs without her having to do a thing. So she never has to worry about RMDs again. She's got a guaranteed income that's going to help her pay her bills for the rest of her life. She left totally happy and knowing she didn't have to mess with RMDs again.
Well, if you'd like to learn more, maybe you've missed some of our safe money stories in the past. Maybe, just maybe, you're in a similar situation to some of the things you've heard on this show. You want to hear more? You want to read more about them? SafeMoneyStories.com is where you can go. Again, SafeMoneyStories.com. Or better yet, pick up the phone and get on Tim Wood's calendar. Have the conversation about RMDs, about taxes, about Social Security, about streams of income in your retirement. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Online anytime at SafeMoneyRetirement.com. That's SafeMoneyRetirement.com. All right, we'll squeeze in a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We got much more of this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood coming up right after this.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck. Do you still have all of your retirement money at risk in the market? Most know that I don't do that. It's way too dangerous, in my opinion, at least. The fact the market could fall off a cliff tomorrow, yet many don't have an expert you can trust. Let me tell you about Tim Wood. Now, he's the owner of Safe Money Retirement. That's a certified financial fiduciary and a best-selling author. I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that he and his team can help you plan your own guaranteed lifetime income streams to cover you and your spouse and grow your money while protecting it from a market crash. Go to safemoneyretirement.com/Beck or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation free 15-minute discovery call with Tim. You know I just don't trust anyone, and so do your own homework with Tim at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and book your free discovery call with Tim online or call 800-913-SAFE and get started today.
Well, thanks again for joining us here on this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. As we are each and every week, we are here with the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement, Mr. Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin, and Tim and I thank you so much for making this show part of your routine, and we hope you're having a fantastic day. If you're tuned in today, you fit one of two categories. Either you're working with somebody and you have a financial advisor, or you don't. And if you've been putting off planning for your retirement, stop kicking that can down the road. Take charge, take command, and have that conversation about getting the ball rolling for planning for your financial future with Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement today. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233 or online at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, folks, it's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, we talked in our previous segment about, when you start the process for planning for your retirement. So if you're 10 years away and you think you know when you're going to retire, well, you might want to be looking closely at how much you've saved. And maybe, just maybe, you're not happy with that number. And Yahoo Finance's Carrie Hannon says, plan for ways to bring in more income, one of which is working longer. Listen to what she had to say.
I'm not saying pedal to the metal. It doesn't have to be. People who retire at 65, my goodness, you could have 2+ or 3 decades in retirement. So this is something to consider as an ongoing way to bring in some income as you approach, kind of tip your toes into retirement full time, right? So a lot of people may inch into this. They may work part-time, consulting. There are lots of ways to slice and dice it. But the point is, start thinking 5 years in advance about what that might be.
All right, so Tim, that sounds good on the surface, but what about for those listening that have encountered a situation where maybe that decision wasn't necessarily up to them? How can you help our listeners plan for a plan B, if you will, if they end up, suffering an unexpected early retirement, something that maybe catches them as a curveball?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we know that happens way too often. I mean, that's what happened with my dad when he retired. That's the part of the story I actually left out of the book, Kevin, but I'll go ahead and say it right now. He didn't have a choice. He had to retire because he had worked for the same company for decades, was making a lot of money, and they could bring in 2 or 3 kids right out of college to pay him what he was, and pay them combined what he was making. That's what happened. So, I mean, really, yeah, it does come down to what What can you do? Again, it goes right back to essentially setting up those individual personalized pension plans like you've heard us talk about. Is if you're going to lose that income and you aren't going to have any opportunity to have any kind of a replacement income, we've got to do something to get you the income that you need. You've got to have that floor. Again, you've got to make sure you've got enough to cover your bills, and then any extra we can, that's kind of play money. But we've got to make sure you've got enough to cover your bills. And kind of what Carrie was talking about, man, I agree. And unfortunately, I'm the bearer of bad news too often, where I have to tell people, man, it really would work if you could work part-time, or you could consult, or you could do something, or even if you find something that you're passionate about, that you can make a little extra money, that little bit extra that you can make, that can allow us to defer Social Security one more year. That can allow us, some companies, if you keep working part-time, you can stay on their insurance. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a huge deal, man. If you can stay on the company insurance through the regular plan, or even through COBRA until you get to Medicare, that's a big deal. I mean, that's the client that was in here paying, I think he was between $1,100 and $1,200 a month after he left the company because he didn't have COBRA and didn't have any kind of continuing insurance and still had a couple of years till Medicare. Well, add that up. That's 30, 40 grand over those couple of years. It's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So we need to make a plan for that. And working part-time in a lot of cases makes a whole lot of sense. And I want to just throw this in there real quick before we move on. Not only does it make sense financially, because it does. In almost every situation, the more money you can bring in, it's going to make the bottom line and the whole picture look better, obviously. But I want to think about the emotional and the mental aspect. Because a lot of people, if they retire and they've just got, bam, that cut from all their friends, from what they've done for 35 years, from getting up every morning at 6:30 and having your oatmeal and having your coffee and getting in the car and blah, 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 and getting home, and they've got that as their routine, what are you going to do? What are you going to, you can only play golf with your buddies so much until that gets boring.
Right.
You can only go fishing. You can only do so many trips. You need to have something that is fulfilling in your life. Now, some clients don't need the money. That's fine. If you've got plenty, that's fine. But you still need to find something, again, most likely part-time. Most people don't want to go back to 40 plus hours a week, but you certainly could do 15, 20, 25 hours a week in a day, 2, 3, 4, just do a little, but it's still going to give you that little bit more money, but then give you the engagement and staying socially connected. That's really important.
Obviously, you hear us talk about it all the time on this show. It might sound repetitive, but it's true. It's all about having a plan when it comes to your retirement. And if you don't know where to start, well, let me give you a spot right here, right now. It's Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement. You've got questions about maybe you're 5, 10, even 15 years away from retirement. Maybe you feel like it's too early to start that process. Well, as you hear us say all the time, never too early to start planning for your financial future. And if you'd like to get the ball rolling today, 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233 or online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I know we've talked on this show about delaying Social Security and the big decision that comes along with, okay, when do I turn those benefits on? And again, the answer is different for everybody out there listening today. But beyond delaying Social Security benefits, what are some other creative ways you can help our listeners generate income streams, especially if they are in that window that they're getting close? They're maybe 2 or 3 years away as opposed to 5 or 10.
A few different things. Again, I hate to keep saying it. It's all individualized. But one thing that I work with a lot of people on is minimizing debt and minimizing expenses. You wouldn't believe how many people come in, almost on a weekly basis, that when they come in for the very first meeting and they've got all their expenses put together and we add it all up. Just one the other day, added it all up, was $77,000 a year for a retired couple.
No.
Think about that.
Wow.
And they're living here in my area, Northeast Tennessee. $77,000 a year is a lot. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, you're right. That is a lot. So they went back and dug deeper, and once they actually really dug and found out, it was more like $48,000.
Wow.
Well, that's a huge difference in planning.
Right.
Huge. That's $30,000 a year difference, just using round numbers, that we don't have to worry about. Because I was going to have to try to squeeze, milk from a turnip to get them the income that they needed. So let's look at what can we do to eliminate debt? What can we do to cut down on your expenses? Let's make sure we get a real number so we know what our real target is, number one. That's a big one. But making sure, again, like you had just mentioned, let's make sure that we are smart with Social Security. How should you turn it on? When should you turn it on? How do you determine when to turn it on? And should you or your spouse turn on first? Well, there's formulas, there's reasons, and I can explain all of that individually, but making sure that's done wisely. And there's several other things that we would do. Of course, one everyone knows is talking about the deferred income annuities that I talk about all the time, getting your money into something that's going to give you a guaranteed roll-up growth rate that then you can turn on, that's a guaranteed income you can't ever outlive. And there's several other things that we can do through life insurance and through some other things, but those are the main things that we work on.
If you'd like to learn more, maybe you're starting the process of planning for your retirement, you're looking for those streams of income, or maybe you just want to sit down and figure out exactly what your monthly and yearly expenses are going to look like, and you want to make sure you sit down with someone who does this day in and day out. Well, that guy is Tim Wood. He is the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. And folks, he's just a phone call away. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. And don't forget, folks, if you have not gotten a copy of Tim Wood's book and you'd like to get one, well, all you got to do is get on his calendar right now. He's also going to throw in a copy of that book. It's also entitled Safe Money Retirement, and it's complimentary with no obligation once you schedule that initial conversation. Again, want to learn more at safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, it is the holiday shopping season, and this sort of leads me right into our next topic. We know this time every year, Oprah Winfrey releases a list of her favorite things gift guide, and this includes a lot of affordable things, but it also has some items that might make you question whether you really need them or not, like a $2,000 espresso machine and a $60 pair of anti-fog reading glasses for your shower. I don't know about you. I'm not reading books in my shower. I don't know.
Who's reading in the shower? Are we missing out on life, Kevin? What the heck's going on here?
Somebody out there needs those anti-fog glasses to read a book. Maybe they're reading the Safe Money Retirement book in the shower. Who knows?
I don't think it would hold up, but hey, whatever makes you happy, go get them.
So let me ask you this. When you hear those numbers, a $60 pair of reading glasses for the shower, a $2,000 espresso machine, you mentioned that couple just a few moments ago and their yearly expenses. So how can you help them sort between the must-haves and the, boy, that would be nice to haves when it comes to their retirement?
Yeah, I talk about this with every single client, and those that have heard me for years talk about this. We're talking about paychecks and playchecks. To quote Tom Hegna, your paycheck is what you need that's going to cover your needs. You need to have a floor. You need to have enough guaranteed income that you know that your expenses are going to be covered by income that is not going to go away, that is not subject to the whims of the market, that's not subject to a sequence of returns risk, which I explain in my book if you don't know what that is. You need something that's going to guarantee, your paycheck is going to guarantee that y'all are covered for the rest of your life and you never have to worry about it. And then I also tack on there, we need to have a couple inflation buster plans in there as well, so you've got something to help with inflation because it continues to chug on. And 10, 20 years from now, a gallon of milk really could be $10. What you gonna do? You got to make sure you got a plan. But then the second thing is that play check, right? That wants. What do I want? What's my, what I tell people a lot of times is, what would be the number that if we could get you that in guaranteed income above and beyond what your paycheck is, if we could get you that for the play check, the heavens would open up and you'd hear the, well, the whole thing.
Hold on, give it to us again. What did that sound like again?
Oh, you heard me. So we look for that, but that's want.
Yeah.
That's the play check. That's if we can figure out how to do it. And for the wants, we may do that as guaranteed income, but more times than not, we do that as a growth plan that you can just withdraw from if and when you want to. You don't have to withdraw from it. You don't need that money. That's play money. Well, there may be a year where, God forbid, one of y'all's sick and you don't go on any trips. Well, you don't need any of that money. There may be a year where y'all are both in fantastic health and you know what? We're going to take that trip here and that and do this. And it allows you to basically have a variable income and pull what you need when you need it for the play check, the fun, the wants part of your retirement. But we need to make sure the needs part of your retirement is covered by something that's guaranteed.
If you need help sorting between the must-haves and the would-be nice-to-haves when it comes to your retirement plan, folks, it's not something you want to try to handle on your own. That's why Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here to help. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Online, it's safemoneyretirement.com, safemoneyretirement.com. And maybe, just maybe, you've got a pair of those $60 anti-fogging glasses you'd like to read a copy of his book, Safe Money Retirement, in the shower. Well, we'll give you one of those complimentary once you schedule that initial conversation. Again, you want more details, the website is safemoneyretirement.com. Well, Tim, time flies when we're having fun. It's been another fantastic show here today. And before we are out of time, sir, the floor is all yours for the final word.
Thanks, Kevin. Great show. Hope everyone enjoyed it today. All three of the main topics we discussed today all come down to three words that y'all hear me say over and over. Make a plan. So we were talking about potentially having to work longer. And how is that going to work? Well, let's make a plan. Let's make a plan for, do you need to work longer? Do you need to work part-time? How are you going to turn on Social Security? Do you need a deferred income annuity? How are we going to minimize debt? How are we going to minimize expenses? All of that stuff. Make a plan. Then we talked about Oprah Winfrey's favorite things and wants and needs. Let's make a plan. You've got to have a plan to cover your wants. That's not up for debate. You've got to have a plan to cover your wants, and it's got to last the rest of your life. You can't live off of someone's Monte Carlo simulation that says you've got an 87% chance of success. Well, son, that's a 13% chance of failure. Okay? Let's get you to 100% chance of success. And then also the third thing we talked about at the very beginning was required minimum distributions. How should you do them? What should you do for them? How should you take them? Let's make a plan. That's the only way you're going to have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.